Good morning, folks. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Thank you for joining us here at Code Live. I'm your host, Sam Basu. This is the chat show, and it is Friday. Isn't that a good thing? So Fridays, our one rule is we don't share screens. We code all week. We just want to chat. We just want to spend some time with the folks we love. So I'm delighted, actually, to have our newest team member, Kathryn, join us for the show. Hello, Kathryn.
Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm glad it's Friday.
We made it.
Yeah, we made it. It's been a fun week with lots of news on the social media front and community front. So let's just all chillax and just take the weekend in. Right. Sorry, I'm still recovering from a cold. I'm almost at the tail end of it. But Kathryn, I am super excited to have you here. Kind of know more about you. You are the newest member to join our DevRel team over here at Progress Software. So let's start with the existential question. Who are you? Have you figured out your purpose in life yet?
Man. That's a really big starting question. That wasn't on the list of possible questions I should be prepared for. What's your purpose?
Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. I'm Kathryn. I have just started as the React Dev Advocate, and I'm super excited. This is actually my first time in a DevRel role. So I've been doing front-end engineering up until, I guess, for the last several years. So this has been a really cool transition for me. I've been really enjoying this. So
nice. And already in how many weeks have you been here? Less than a month now?
I think just about a month.
About a month. And we have already seen how brilliant you are. So I want to get into some of the things you bring to the table. But let's talk more about you. Where do you live?
So I am just outside of Asheville, North Carolina.
Nice. And you like where you are? Anything you don't like?
Definitely. It's a fun place to be. It's a lot of obviously Asheville has a pretty huge craft beer scene. That's a lot of fun. Lots of music. It's been obviously a little quieter on that front lately. But it's still just a really gorgeous place to live out in the mountains.
And Asheville is beautiful in fall, right? I'm trying to remember where exactly. Can you tell me what's your nearest biggest city geographically?
Probably Charlotte.
And you're south of Charlotte? No, north of Charlotte.
West, yeah.
Okay, west. Okay.
We're further out west towards the mountains.
Nice. Very cool. All right, and then how long have you lived in Asheville?
Oh gosh, I guess 7 or 8 years now, just about. Yeah, I was in DC for a bit up until then, and then moved out. It was fun.
All right, so you come to us with a long developer background, but you also have a lot of design background as well. So first up, tell us what you do here at Progress Software.
Well, here I am primarily working with the KendoReact team and making sure that we're sharing what they're doing. We just got through, obviously, our big release, which was fun. I'm also working a little bit with the Unite UX team to kind of share on that design side some of what they're doing. But kind of React and design focused stuff is my job here.
Nice. So how did you start? Tell us, kind of walk us through your career. Is this what you always wanted to do growing up?
DevRel? I don't think I knew DevRel was a thing growing up.
All right, well, tech industry work. Did you always want to be a developer, or did you want to be a designer or some other type of job?
Yeah, I started off thinking that I would want to be an artist, a fine artist.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of where I started, and had really always loved drawing and that kind of stuff. My parents were very practical, and I appreciate that. They were like, you need to find a way to do that, but also make a living. And that kind of led me towards graphic design, which ended up being a really great fit. I really loved that. So that's what I went to school for. I have a BFA, a fine arts degree, with a concentration in graphic design, and went from that into doing like ad agency design work, and did that for a while. I've really bounced around talking about my career. It's like I did this and then I did that and then I did that for a little bit.
And that brings that adds to your perspective as to like where you are today. And I'm just like so jealous of people who have that artistic like sense. Like I know a lot of folks like on our team have that. I'm like an absolute zero. Like I can't do anything artistic. I'm just like very jealous of folks who have that artistic bent of mind.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, definitely in the same way that people can have like inclinations towards anything. Like I think some people kind of have a natural inclination, but it's all learnable skills, you know?
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah. Okay, so you started out wanting to be a graphics designer, but then what brought you into the dev world?
That was kind of right as things were starting to shift really seriously, and print design was becoming less and less of a thing, and those jobs were harder and harder to find. So I was working kind of at a small ad agency, and even then I was doing some print design work, but was also more and more getting pulled into like landing pages and HTML emails and like banner ads and all of that kind of stuff. And I knew just a little bit. I'd had to take like one class when I was in college, and I took Java back when I was in high school. So knew enough about finding my way around some code that like making basic HTML edits was fine. It could make a basic website. It was not anything to write home about, but it was not a skill that a lot of other developers had, or designers had. Developers had it. But so that was
like,
enough.
I'm hearing like HTML and CSS kind of drew you in.
That was it. Yep. That was pretty much the extent, but it wasn't a common skill set, and just having a little bit of knowledge was enough that I kept getting placed on those accounts.
Nice. And then you learned and just kept on pushing.
I actually went from there into email development for a while, and was in email marketing, design and development for a few years, because that's also pretty basic HTML and CSS. It's got its own set of challenges.
Well, yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, I mean, just if we look back at,
basic, but not JavaScript.
But I mean, if you look at like the number of like marketing emails we all get, we sometimes don't see like the work behind it. Like everything needs to be nice looking. It's a lot of design work. Yeah.
And the code has not progressed in the same way, and so you're really, it's still very table based and still very old school.
Whenever we are streaming with our good friend Ed Charbonneau, like I make it a point to use an HTML table, because like I know it like really hurts him to see me use that. But all right, so you kept on doing, and now you're full on in the dev world, but with a strong inclination for design, because you have that background.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Just kind of kept jumping around, and email development became website development, became application development, became dev advocacy.
Nice. And you have some Angular background as well, and now you do React. Like it's all the same, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, I did Angular for a few years right before this job, actually. So there's a little bit of, I was interviewing, they were like, you'd be doing React. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to relearn React. There was like hooks came out like right while I was at the end of my last React job, and we weren't bothering with it because we weren't really sure yet if this was going to be a thing. And then of course it took off. And so jumped back. It was like, I better figure out what's been happening over here.
Yeah. So do you have people in your lives, like, relatives or, kids, where you have a hard time explaining like what you do for a living?
Absolutely. Honestly, half the time I still just kind of say I'm a software engineer and don't even get into the the DevRel side of it.
Right.
I'm still kind of, how do you describe that? I'm still kind of learning.
Well, I mean, like for kids, like I have a 5-year-old, like the most natural thing to them is like I make stuff happen on computers. Like I make games, like they relate to that. But you're right. Like the whole like dev advocacy, like developer relations, like when I started, and I'm an old man. I don't know how many times I've said this on streams, but like 10 years back, you really did not know. Like now, every tech company knows the need for developer relations, but it really was like it's a craft that has grown over the last like 10 years. But like if you look back, things were just not ready when some of us started. So it was really interesting to explain like do we go on like to go to people's doors and knock on doors to sell them CDs? Like no, it's a little different. But it's interesting how for any tech company making products for developers, like this is a critical role, because we are developers. We are all developers, but we are also the in between developer customers and our engineering and product teams. Yeah. All right. So since you have this design background, like this is a bridge that we are always wanting to cross, right? And it's hard. So it's hard for somebody like me who doesn't have that artistic inclination, but I want to do better. So what are some things developers can do to get better at this?
Honestly, I think the best things you can do are to kind of really start with the basics. I think a lot of times developers get caught up in like UI design and think they need to figure out specifics, but then you're really jumping and you're trying to do something that's way up here without knowing the stuff down here. So I think kind of getting a handle on things like balance and hierarchy and color theory and just like kind of the basic information about how people scan a page and where their eyes go first. And like just that kind of stuff is going to be enough to elevate whatever you're working on hugely without having to worry about some of the really picky UI design battles that people who are specialists will get into. And those are, they're worth having, and it's great to have an expert. But if you're just looking to make something that doesn't look bad, like you can do that without getting too far into the weeds.
So what are some good resources? Like if I were to just like search for stuff, like where I can learn the basics, where would you point people to?
That is a good question that I should have an answer to. And I don't have a great answer to it because I was lucky enough to learn it in school.
Like you had formal education. I'm sure like there are lots of like resources.
I know it's out there.
Learn. Yeah, it's out there. Right. Have to dig. Okay, now let's say you are working with somebody who's lazy like me, and I don't want to learn all the good stuff. I just want to jump over to UI design. Like, are there any things like I keep hearing about? This release we did like Figma kits. We have like in the .NET space we have like lots of themes. Like, just give me a good starting point. Like, I want to have Material, Bootstrap, whatever. Just give me a good starting point so I don't have to think too much. So where would I start in that case? Like just start with one of the kits, like start at a good like template maybe?
Yeah, so if you really just want to start and have it look good and not have to fuss with it at all, the pre-made themes are the way to go. The Figma kits are actually almost more in the other direction if you want to start getting really granular. Those are really good if you're working with a designer or if you want to go in and make design edits. The Figma kits are really great at kind of showing how our components are broken down and what like shared color variables they use and kind of where all of that is set. And you can go in and make those edits with the Figma kit and then really easily port them over and make your own custom theme. But that sounds like maybe even more nitty-gritty than you were looking for.
Well, okay, no, let me dig in. Like, let's say I do want to learn and I do want to do the right thing. I have a designer friend that I'm working with. I want to make that transaction better so we can work together better. So tell me a little bit for a dumb question, but what is Figma? What does it let me do? And what is a Figma kit for me as a Kendo UI developer?
Not a dumb question at all. Figma is UI design software. And those things, I mean, especially not a dumb question because those things turn over all the time. And the software du jour is always, it's the React Angular view of the design world. So some people will use Figma. If you've also heard Sketch or Adobe XD, or they're all competitors that do similar things. Yeah, same thing. But Figma is right now one of the most popular, and I think it's great, super accessible because you can start for free. You can just go and make an account.
Is it web-based or
completely web-based?
Okay,
yeah.
Nice.
So you can do it in your browser. They do have you can download the software as well, but you don't have to. It's just as full-featured.
I'm guessing it's like a web shell that's making it run on desktop if you need it to.
Probably. Yeah. but yeah, pretty darn powerful for being able to get in and use it and not have to pay. So definitely.
So if I was making a modern or looking to make a modern website or a mobile device, like I could go to Figma, start with some kind of like boilerplate looking templates. Okay, and then once I'm done and I'm done tinkering and I've customized it, then what's the end result? Like, do I get like CSS?
You can. They don't. Basically, you'll be able to inspect each element. There's an inspect tool that's kind of like your dev tools, where you can go in and it'll kind of walk you through the properties and be like, oh, the border radius is this, and you can copy paste, make your own thing. It'll generate some CSS for you. It's a little hit or miss, like all application generated code is, but it's a really good starting point to not have to do the whole thing from scratch.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and you can create prototypes that can show, like, when you click here, it moves to this screen, and when you click here, it does this animation. All of that's exportable as your standard kind of, PDFs or JPEGs or PNGs. So assets, deliverables.
Yeah. Good to know. All right, so I'm hearing I need to up my game. I need to learn more about design, because you should see some of the apps I make. They're like battlefield gray with like text on a screen. I need to do that. Yeah. All right. So given your background and given what you do right now, or maybe just even looking back at a few years, like what would you say in the current mode of app dev? What's the most exciting thing that you see for yourself, and what are some of your challenges?
Most exciting right now, I definitely feel like we're in kind of a golden era of like component libraries and design systems. I hear more talk about that now than I think I possibly ever have. Like, there's a lot of interest in kind of creating those libraries, and I think there's a lot of kind of understanding about the value that they bring, and it's becoming less and less of like a sell, which is exciting, because they really, obviously I could go to bat for component libraries all day, but yeah, it's nice to see that kind of shifting from less of like, no, you really need a design system, like I promise this is important, to people kind of getting that value sooner and being more willing to jump in. So I find that very exciting. What was the second half of that question? Ooh, I got on a tangent.
What are the challenges? Like, what are some things you feel like we could do better?
I think accessibility is probably one of the biggest challenges right now. Is that we're kind of in this space where there's starting to be kind of a general understanding that we need it and it's important, crucial even, but the understanding isn't really there yet in terms of technical implementation.
Right,
there's a lot of people going like, oh, that's important, we should do that. I don't know how to do that, but we should do that.
I hear you. Yeah. And then we see a lot of folks out in our communities kind of advocating for this, but you're right. Like, some of the technologies need to kind of catch up and make it easier for developers to kind of do this as just a regular part of any other app dev that you do.
Right.
Like all the ARIA and all the the semantic properties, everything can be better to help us write more inclusive apps.
Right. We're kind of in this place where it's still seen as like something extra that you have to do after development is finished.
Afterthought,
yeah. But
do you find, let me ask you this, like, do you think that for somebody who is coming right out of college, have we kind of made things like too difficult for somebody to kind of get into like a component stack and think about design and think about accessibility, or are there like bite-sized pieces that somebody could start taking?
Man, that's a good question. It's interesting because I think about kind of how things were when I got out of college, which feels like an eternity ago now. And even then, I feel like we were starting to see this shift where the front end was less just CSS and just styling, and it was more these kind of big JavaScript frameworks that required like actual software engineering knowledge. And there was kind of this break where we were deciding like, well, what is the job of a front end developer, and what does that really
You
mean?
almost have to like specify, like, are you on the front of the front end? Are you in the back of the front end?
I really love those terms because it got really hard. Like it felt like it ramped up really quick, and all of a sudden there was a really important distinction.
It is very, very difficult to be a full stack developer. Like, what does it mean to be full stack? Like, how can you even do all of the things? Like some of us who are old, like we are used to like doing database stuff and the middle tier services and the front end, but now like even front end is like so
broad.
Chat room, Eli, hello. Wayo fans, good to see you. Thanks for being here. It's a Friday, it's a chat show. We're just chatting, and we're talking about design and I'm learning from Kathryn, and I think we should do more shows where I just sit down and learn from you, because there's just so much to learn here. Norche, good to see you, lovely people. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. And hey, Eva, it's late.
Oh man,
tuning in from Sofia Metro. Hi. Oh, that's funny. So this is our good friend Eva, who's in Sofia, Bulgaria, because that's where our engineering headquarters are. And Kathryn, I'm guessing you have never been to Sofia, Bulgaria.
Not yet.
But it's a beautiful city, and the metro is amazing. Well, I mean, maybe Eva will disagree with me, but I find it pretty nice. Good to have somebody tuning in from the underground. Oh, and actually, I did have a question about that. Eli is asking about your background. Like, my background is like, like, look at my spick and span kitchen. Like, there's not a thing on it. No,
mine's a mess.
but it's real. Mine's a total mess just behind a green screen. But what is the damage gym developer, and what is censored?
So I got this at like a pop culture con years ago, back many moons ago, when I worked in an actual office, and I would hang it up in my cubicle. It's a dry erase board, and people would come by and change it all the time. This is what it got left on when I left my last office job, and so it's just stayed that way forever. I like to think the censored is just, I don't want to know. Brings a little air of mystery.
Right. And are those like conference badges? Like
yeah, they are. There's a little break here, and these are all like nerd pop culture con badges. And these are actual like industry conference badges where I've attended or spoken.
See, you have such a varied background. You bring more than one perspective to the table. I like that. Yeah, and you got to have a little bit more space, because you'll be doing more developer type events, and the lanyards. Like I have gotten to a point where I can't keep the lanyards around as much, but I do keep every one of the cards and speaker or attendee cards. It's a big.
Some
stack.
Of these are double stacked because it's.
There you go.
Yeah. But I have such a hard time throwing them out. Like I kind of know that they're junk.
Yeah. And shirts. Like I have stopped buying anything that I wear at home, because like all I wear is conference apparel. Yeah.
There was a great tweet that was going around where someone was like, after you graduate high school, people stop just giving you t-shirts. And I was like, oh, buddy, not the case.
Right. Okay, so we have talked about design. We have talked about kind of where we can get better, but let's talk about like your present landscape. You are in the React space, but be it in React or be it something else, have you seen like a really cool piece of technology that kind of excites you in the last couple of weeks, months, years?
It's like I feel like what everyone's talking about now is the new upcoming React 18 release. And so I'm having a hard time thinking of things that aren't that, because that's been like the blinders have been on for me a little bit lately. Yeah. That one feels really big.
So for a non-insider, like React has how many big releases every year? And yeah, React 18, is it out? Is it coming?
It's coming. We should get it sometime in the next few months. They're being a little bit not being like super clear about like a date. So we're all just kind of waiting. The like alpha is out, so you can go play with it and see everything. So we're just kind of waiting for that like stable beta to drop. And it's like any day now mode for probably the next many weeks.
And how many releases do you have every year?
Usually, I think only like one or two. Not as many. I feel like Angular is the one that's like out all the time. They have a really strict like, I forget how often it is. I feel like it's every like 6 or 8 months. Someone's gonna correct me. That's the benefit to saying something wrong on the internet, is you know that you'll figure it out quickly.
It's hard. Like some of these are actually like it's a big ship to turn. Like so like I come from the Microsoft and the .NET space. Like .NET has one major release every year, but it takes a lot of churn to get that release right and to kind of line up everything that's going out in the release. Like for us, like we can iterate a little quicker because we are kind of sitting on the shoulder of giants. Like we have the frameworks that we are sitting on. So like we can churn a little bit faster, but some of the bigger, frameworks take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you're excited about React 18. Anything else like outside of React that you find very enticing?
Trying to think if there's anything like new. Like, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
All right, so. That's fine. There's just like so much, going on.
So much.
There's just there's just so
and it will hang up, and I'll be like, the thing, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people talking about AR and like all the different, human-computer interactions and everything. I don't know. I think we are looking for the next socially acceptable thing that we all do. And,
I keep hearing.
Tablets have been around, but
so much of my Twitter feed is up about like crypto and like Web3. I'm hesitant. I'm not there yet. But
I don't understand crypto. I need to spend more time. I don't understand.
It has been really fun to watch that overlap with the design community as NFTs started to take off.
Don't even get started, because that's another thing I don't understand.
Oh, it's pissed off both sides. That's been great to just like grab a thing of popcorn and watch.
Right. Yeah. NFTs for everything. Okay. Looking around your desk or your life, what would you say is your most beloved like tech gadget or toy, whatever?
The iPhone feels like a cop-out, so I don't know that I can.
No, I mean, it's such a critical part of our life.
It's a critical piece. I'm pretty sold on the Apple walled garden thing. I'm in. I got the watch, I got the phone. Like, I'm in.
Stay in the walled garden. Just don't leave. Don't ever leave,
comfy.
Then you're fine. No, and you and me have like exchanged tweets, but I mean, my iPhone was like 2.5 years old, so like I'm team blue now, and this it's kind of blending into the green screen. But I jumped on the 13 now, which it feels like a little hefty compared to like the other, like even like 12. But it just does more, has a bigger battery. So I mean, the phone is a critical part of our lives now.
I'm really kicking it around. I've still got the 10, and it feels like it's probably time. And I'm really tempted by the minis. I really want. I have really small hands. The thought of the small phone, I'm kind of into it.
No, and if that's what you're looking for, like I have never actually, like I've tried, but I've never actually had a tablet. Like my kid and like everybody uses an iPad. I just don't use a tablet. My phone is the thing that's always with me. So I like a bigger screen, and I know it's a little like bulky to carry around, but like that's how I read. That's how I kind of watch stuff when I'm on a plane. So I like a bigger phone, but it's just all personal choices now.
Yeah, I never got on board the tablet thing either. It feels like either my phone is enough or I want my laptop. And the
Yeah.
number of times when I'm like, I wish I had my phone, but a little bit bigger. Almost never.
Yeah, yeah. You know, one of my like best like productivity devices is like, I mean, I have my desk which is like full of gadgets and big screens and everything, and it just feels very formal. But I have it's like 3 years old now. I have one of those like tiny little MacBooks that's like 10
Mhm.
inch, and it's just like lightweight. It just doesn't do much. It doesn't have much juice. But if you just want to kind of shut out everything and just write, that thing is brilliant. And like I see people doing it with like an iPad Pro, whatever works, where you can just like sit on the couch, go out on the patio, or just like sit at a coffee shop and just write something or read something. I like these devices where it just lets you focus.
Yep. I am always amused by now. You've seen like some of those phones that come out that don't do anything but like call and text. Like can't like
Yeah,
we're regressing.
yeah. I don't take any phone calls, like unless it's like the family that I know. I don't take any phone calls on my phone. Yeah, it's funny. We are going back, and a lot of like dual screen devices are coming now. I'm still
Yeah.
yet to buy into it, but I see the promise. Yeah,
It's
like
interesting. It feels like one more way for my phone to break. I'm a little skeptical, but they look cool.
yeah, they do, they do. Yeah, especially like for gaming or like reading a book, it just feels like a natural thing.
It's
So
true.
we shall see. We shall see. All right. So we talked all about your work, your career. What do you do outside of work? What does Kathryn do to have a social work-life balance?
Well, let's see. Generally, everything I'm going to list is just like, wow, what a big nerd, because that's really the short answer.
That's who you are
But
then.
I play a lot of video games. I read a lot of books. My husband and I do a lot of tabletop gaming together. We host a D&D group.
Oh,
So
nice, nice. You are nerdy. Yeah.
yeah, in it. There's no way to be like, yeah, that's it. Just big
Yeah.
old nerd. But
Hey, nothing wrong in that. Nothing wrong. And what type of games do you play?
video games.
Yeah.
Mostly RPGs. I'm a sucker for
Oh,
like an old school, like turn-based JRPG. Being into the like classic Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, like
nice,
all
nice,
of
very
those.
nice, very nice. And PC or console?
Console. That's
Console.
definitely. I know that PC gaming is probably better, but after spending all day at a computer,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
something.
Whatever suits you.
I did like Bravely Default. Oh, sorry. I saw that in the comments and replied to it without actually putting it on screen. Still getting the hang of this.
I have not
Yep.
played that at all.
No, it was
Yeah,
fun.
good
It
to
was
know.
cute.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about food. Are you a foodie?
Um, I don't know about foodie.
Kind of.
I mean, I like to eat. I'm not very.
Okay, let me rephrase. Like, do you eat to survive or do you survive to eat?
Oh man. I unfortunately probably lean more on the eat to survive side.
Oh, that's fair.
I'm
That's
not
fair.
at full like Soylent Green levels of like subsistence eating. But yeah, I've never had a real talent for cooking. Baking I can manage. For some
Oh
reason
well.
cooking feels different.
Okay, so that's interesting because like you're doing the more difficult thing first. Like I
You think?
cannot get into
Oh, I
baking. No,
disagree.
no, no. Well, baking is very precise. Like you can easily screw things up. While cooking, you have a lot more like leeway. Like you can toss things around, you can play
Yeah.
around. But in the baking, like
That's
you
the
you
part that's hard.
well,
Like,
it's just the thing that like you're shoving something into an oven and you need to know that you have done it right because you have no say while it's doing its thing in the oven, right? That's the thing that
yeah.
scares me. Like when I'm cooking, like I can taste like as I'm going along, I can mix and match and I can try to fix my errors, while in baking you have like no room for adjustments.
See, and I do much better. Baking to me feels like, all right, like these are the instructions. And I don't have to like improvise or like taste and have to
Oh,
magically
so
know
see,
what's missing. Or I never got a good sense for that.
Okay, so I have a point to make on that. So Eli is saying that's the great spiritual successor of Final Fantasy. Okay, and Norche here is asking about your favorite cuisine, which is what I was going to ask. Of the things you like to eat, what do you like most?
Ooh. Oh man. Probably Italian food. I
Yeah,
love like
nothing
I
wrong.
know that's like a classic, but like a lasagna, pizza, pasta, like carbs. Carbs in every
Carbs.
form. Carbs and cheese, ideally.
Nice. And as I'm highlighting thing, I'm trying to think like, is this Norche like our Norche? Trying to think like we work with somebody named Nora who we call Norche, which I don't know if that's the same person on Twitch because we can't tell. But yeah, do tell if you are also from Sofia, then we will know. So to your point of baking versus cooking, see, you said here are the instructions, and we just do the thing we measure, and that's it.
Yeah.
But you are not recognizing that there are people like me who are just lazy and dumb to not read the instructions. Like I don't do very well with instructions. I would rather just like toss things and see what comes out.
See that I just whatever that like improvisational kind of skill is to just know like I bet this would be good with whatever. I'm lacking that. I don't have that like I'm sure it's something that
One of the fun things to do is, like whatever is like if you don't have dinner on a certain evening, right, just to look in your fridge or your freezer and just try to toss something together with whatever you have. Like that's where I excel, because like it's just whatever. I don't have to follow any guidance. But actually, good to know that is actually our little chick. So hello, and she's got a good point. Eventually, once the world comes back to some form of normalcy, we would love to have you come to Bulgaria, because it's the cuisine, the food, the culture. It's just so amazing.
I am really excited to go. That's when, like, ever since I joined, I think every week someone has been like, "Oh, just wait until you get to go to Bulgaria." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I know, but also I can't. So please stop taunting me.
Eventually, yeah.
I am very excited to go when things open up again.
Yeah. All right. So, what else do you do, like nights and weekends? Anything else that's outside what you have already mentioned? Like you game, you play board games. Anything else? And you also said like you write, like reading. Like what kind of stuff do you read?
Oh man, all over the place. I will try anything once, honestly. The only genres I'm not like a big mystery person, so don't do that super well, or like horror. Um other than that, like yeah, anything that gets recommended, I will try.
Open mind,
um,
open to reading anything.
yeah.
Eli is asking if I'm in Bulgaria. No, I'm stateside. I'm in Northwest Pennsylvania, but our company, Kathryn and me both work at Progress Software, and our engineering headquarters, so especially for the Telerik, Kendo UI, Fiddler, Unite UX, those families, that headquarter is in Sofia, Bulgaria. So we go out there quite a bit, and it's one of those places where like if you had to like pick a place to go in Eastern Europe, you may not always like pick it, but it's just like such an amazing, so much of history, so much of culture once you go there. Yeah. And Eli is saying, didn't Progress just go public? No, we have been public for 40 years, actually.
I
What you
say
may
we
have,
just did the bell ringing.
yeah. So what you may have seen is like us doing the bell ringing at New York Stock Exchange last week or the week before, marking our 40 years anniversary, which is a long time for a software company. And to be honest, like we were not Progress like all through. Telerik was kind of more of a merger back in 2014, 2015 timeframe. So now we are just all one big family with offices in the US, engineering and offices in Rotterdam, Netherlands, and Sofia, Bulgaria, and India, and Brazil. Like we're all over. Yeah. That's the bell ringing is what people saw. It was pretty cool, like to be able to kind of see our stuff like on those huge, New York billboards. Cool. All right, so here's another trick question coming up. If you had $1 million right now, what would you do?
Oh man.
You can be selfish, or you can go whatever you want.
No, I mean, I think it would end up being a mix of those things.
Yeah.
You probably, I don't know, buy a cool house or something. Like do a couple of like splashy things for me.
Sure.
Like,
Nothing wrong.
upgrade the living situation. Not that it's bad now, but like if you had that much money, why not buy like a house with a pool and like a, I don't know, something,
Well,
big yard, movie
it
theater.
depends. Like based on where you are, $1 million may not be much. Like if you're looking at Hollywood, you're not
California.
You're not going to get a whole lot. Yeah. Midwest, we're good.
Yeah. I would definitely want to give some away because like that's a huge windfall to just like hold tight. Like I don't know. It feels like if somehow that were to happen, good karma would be to give some of it back.
Sure.
And then I'd probably be boring. And anything that was left after that would go into the retirement account, into the savings account. Like I know that's such a boring answer, but like
no, but it's real. It's real.
It's so practical.
Yeah. Do you like traveling? Do you like? I mean, it sounds like you like going around and seeing places. You're excited about like Bulgaria.
I think it's just been that like travel has been off the agenda for so long that like it didn't even come up. That's probably probably 3 years ago. Kathryn would have been like, "Oh, I'd love to travel," and like now Kathryn was like, "I don't know, maybe we invest in the house." What if we're stuck here for another 5 years?
No, we're getting out. Hopefully crawling out of our pandemic bone. Oh, and this is a good question here from your teammate, putting you in a spot maybe. But what are some causes you care about? What do you feel strongly for?
I think the best kind of causes you can contribute to are the ones kind of local in your community, ones that are like doing the work where you live. And so I'm a big supporter. There's a group out here in Asheville that I volunteer with called Seek Healing that does like addiction help and fostering connection in the community to kind of support that, kind of with the idea that the more kind of genuine human connections you have, the more you can kind of like that recovery journey is supported because you have a support system that's not substance-based. And I care really deeply about them. And it's been really good to get to work with them. Tangent, but
no, that's perfect.
That's fun.
No, that's great because and I was actually thinking about this. I'm glad Norcia brought this up because in our present landscape, like with social media and everything, like sometimes you wonder, like you might feel strongly about something, but are you making a difference, like in the bigger scheme of things? Like you talk about like climate change or whatever. Or like, are you making a difference? But like every little bit counts. Like your local things count because you're improving lives, you're improving the quality of the air or whatever it is that you're doing. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, I think that's one of those like those causes. The big ones are really important, but it can often feel like you are tackling a problem that is so big that you don't see the impact. But when you're working kind of immediately with the folks in your community, I think you see it a lot faster, and when that community is stronger, they can as a group contribute to some of the bigger problems. But like your community at kind of a base level isn't functioning well and people are unhappy at an individual level, like you're not going to band together and solve climate change. Like and that sounded dismissive and that wasn't the right.
No, I mean some of it, like it has to go up, like bubble up the chain to like corporate decisions, but everything we do little bit like with our communities makes a difference. I had a bit of an awakening, again going off on a tangent, like this whole like notion we have of any type of healthy meeting is like all like proteins and like kind of like man up and like eating lots of animal protein. I was watching a documentary on what that does, like animal farming, what that does to the climate change, and it's hard to deny some of those numbers. And excuse me, our body is actually like very open to like plant-based food. So like, don't get me wrong, like I'm a huge fan of like meat eating, but I think we're going to take a small step as like in our family, trying to go vegan like once a week, right? I think we can do that, and there are plenty of options around to start taking that small step. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, we've definitely gotten to a point where I think meat has become the default basis for every meal, and it really doesn't need to be. I'm with you in that I'm not one of those people that's ever honestly going to go 100% vegetarian, but at the same time, the like full on, meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is equally
doesn't need to be there.
Doesn't need to happen.
Exactly. All right, so we talked about a lot of excuse me, a lot of things I actually learned. Like, this is why we do this. Like, we started the chat show last year, with the pandemic mode, but I think I want to keep on doing this because like this is like sitting down with somebody at like the hallway conversations at an office or at a conference. Like, you learn more about the person. So leave us with some maybe your parting thoughts and inspirations here, like looking ahead at the next year. What is Kathryn excited about? What does life hold for you?
Oh man. It's going to sound really hokey, but a lot of it has been this job change for me, and that this feels really new and it's been exciting. I had kind of been in a place where I felt pretty competent and comfortable as a software engineer, and I kind of had what I thought was my, my 5-year, my 10-year plan. And I kind of made a jump I wasn't expecting to when I took this gig. And so now I'm in this space where it's like, oh, interesting. It's a little bit scary to see some of that shift because I'm a very like type A individual. But at the same time, it feels like a lot of possibility and a lot of kind of, I guess, opportunity that I hadn't really been expecting, that just kind of fell into my lap in a really good way. So when I look ahead, that's kind of where I'm at, is like, man, I really had made an assumption. I think if there's anything these last few years have been, I think it's taking assumptions that we had made and telling us to throw them away. So that trend has continued. And so that's, I don't know if that's an inspiring tidbit, but that's kind of where I'm at, is in this place of like letting assumptions go and trying to be a little more open to seeing whatever happens. That's what's meant to happen.
Yeah, no, that's well said, because like, how many times do we settle into our comfort zone, and like any type of change is scary, right? And here you are taking like yet another jump in your career, and like from whatever little we have seen of you, like the sky is the limit. Like, you're amazing at what you do, so just keep on doing it.
I definitely would not be able to do it without the help of the team. So it has been a really great place to jump into and just be like, I know nothing, let's go. Like, everyone's been amazing.
No, thanks for that. Oh, and our chat room and 3D Potter. Hey, good to see you.
True.
It is true. It is true. And maybe it doesn't need to be like, maybe like, and vegan can come out as rough. Like, if you take out like dairy, if you take out like some of the cheeses, like it's a lot. I think I would miss cheese. Yeah. But I'll tell you this, like I was completely surprised. Like, you see those like Impossible burgers everywhere. I was at a Starbucks and I never knew like they had an Impossible like breakfast sandwich, and it was amazing. Like, it was completely vegan, but it was amazing. So it comes down to like, when we go like grocery shopping, are there things that are plant-based that are equally good in terms of texture and taste, and then maybe it won't be so rough for all of us. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah, there is hard.
Yeah, ice cream, cheese, like, I couldn't.
But again, like, it comes down to like options. Like, do you have things to fall back on? Like, try some of the non-dairy ice cream in your grocery stores. You'll be surprised. Okay. No, I completely hear it. It's hard, but and I'm not an advocate, and this is the fun thing. Like, when people go, like, when they make a choice to go vegan, like, they're the loudest people that you hear them a lot, because they're talking about it. But maybe maybe they're just trying to share the alternatives are equally good. But everything comes with a grain of salt. Like maybe a lot of the farming, maybe a lot of the things we are fond of can be done much more sustainably. We were just having a conversation, especially in some job roles where you are expected to travel. Like you carry this like guilt every time you travel. Like, what's my carbon footprint, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the solution isn't to do less, but also to do it in a sustainable way. Like I travel, for example, a lot with like United, and that's an airline, and other airlines have like similar goals, like to go carbon neutral by like 2050, sustainable biofuels, electric cars.
Mhm.
So just kind of do every little bit that kind of reduces our carbon footprint. But big changes are scary, but like baby steps are maybe not so much.
And all those little things stack up too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I hear you. It's really about right. Yeah. So we shall see. But Kathryn, this has been awesome. This has been awesome to just gonna have a chat. Bernax, sustainable. Yeah, that's a loaded term. I hear you. I hear you. It's a loaded term, and we can talk a lot about it. It's got to do with like green gases and like and what do you call sustainable, like truly sustainable. And yeah, it's a loaded term. We can agree, disagree, as long as we're all working together. We have one planet, unless like Elon finds a way for us to live on other planets. We got a single planet.
I'm not holding my
our
breath
lives
on that
are.
one.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every little bit helps. And the thing you don't want, and as we see with like our current culture, is like forcing people to do anything. That's not good. It should be something that you understand the impact, and it's a choice that you make. So yeah.
Yep.
To space. Yeah. So, on that note, you cannot beat that comment, right? On that note, we're going to call it a show here. But Kathryn, it's been amazing trying to just know you better. I have a whole lot to learn from you. So hopefully I can have you over and teach me some design while I'm doing some .NET code. So we are super thankful to have you on the team, and you're awesome. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thanks. It was super fun to be here.
Yeah.
Had a good time.
All right, and Norche and Eli and 3D Potterat and Eva and everybody else in the chat room, thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's a Friday. We just like stretch our legs and have these conversations. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday, great weekend wherever you are. Stay safe, stay healthy, be productive, and have a good time. So until then, we shall see you on the next stream. All right, folks.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.